know, His Majesty the King, King Charles, as we've often said here on the show, is a very easygoing fellow, doesn't really like to ruffle feathers, doesn't like confrontation, and certainly does not like arguments. It must have been very difficult in the final few months for him, alongside Meghan Markle and his youngest son, Prince Harry. As we saw them battling it out for Megxit, going public with so many things, there was one thing that both Harry and Meghan, according to a well-placed source, assured His Majesty the King would never happen. And then, of course, it did. And this now is truly the consequence. As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning. Neil Sean here. Nice to see you. You hope you're well. By the way, I just wanted to check in with you about your kind comments regarding the Betty Hutton story that someone sent in to me and said, did you meet Betty Hutton? I did point out I was a little too old to meet Betty Hutton, but obviously I've met people who had. It's nice though to get feedback like that, and as I say, as and when we do look at all the comments, and if it's possible and we have a connection and we can find things out, I'm more than happy to. But it's just tricky. People say, Neil, look into this. I have a full-time job and I am sort of quite busy, but whenever I can, I do look into things. It's always a pleasure. But truly, thank you for your kind comments about that. Nice as well to do something for someone. Always cheers you up, doesn't it? Back as ever, though, to your breaking royal story of the day. You see, King Charles, as he is now, of course, would have thought, well, at least the bottom line was that, it would have been an easy time for him, given the fact that when you think Harry and Meghan had decided to quit public royal life, he then financed their very first year, something which they both lied about in the Oprah Winfrey interview, which must have caused him great distress. If you remember, Prince Harry claimed he'd been cut off financially, and that was the reason why they'd signed for Netflix. Really, it was simply a cover. As we'd found out, they'd already been planning these things well in advance before they left royal life. But you see, according to a very well-placed source, this, as we told you recently, the appointment of Lord Young of Windsor, Edward Young, the former definitely sort of right-hand man of our late and wonderful monarch Queen Elizabeth II, must have hurt Prince Harry incredibly much. Because when you think about it, this could have been a role assigned to him, deputising for his father on major events around the world. Not to be. But one thing, though, that both Harry and Meghan assured His Majesty the King wouldn't be happening, and this was, absolutely 100%, was there were going to be no tell-all revealing documentaries. I know, take that on board. They told him that. And what was interesting, you see, is that both Prince Charles at the time had done the revealing documentary, and of course Harry's late mother, Princess Diana, had done the revealing documentary. And of course, as we now know with the BBC and what was unfolding at that particular time, everybody knew it was a mistake all round. But both Harry and Meghan, alongside, I am told, Doria, all felt that this wouldn't be the right path, and they assured His Majesty the King and Queen Camilla, and at the time, of course, our reigning monarch. Now, when you think about it, you can understand why His Majesty the King has recently appointed, yes, Mr. Young, Lord Young of Windsor, in such an esteemed role. It just goes to show exactly how much trust, faith, and ability he puts in him. And isn't it a shame that all thanks to Harry backtracking on a very sacred promise, he lost out on that role too? He has to think at times, what have I let go, all in the name of love? I'm sure you'll agree. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.